have a speaker here.
So hello again. My name is Sonya Tinsley-Hook. I am a member here at UCA, and I'm also one of the co-chairs of the newly established Whitney Young Junior Society. The Whitney Young Junior Society is a fellowship of African Americans working within UCA to help it achieve its highest aspirations of being a beacon of anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism for our faith, city, nation, and world. Big dreams. So, thank you so much for being a part of our very first program here. So we are grateful. I'd like to just quickly start out by, well, first of all, I should acknowledge people who have been participating as part of the Whitney Young Junior Society. So if you just raise your hands or wave. So, I think it's important to let you know, in case you don't already know, who was Whitney Young Jr. Here's a quote from the PBS documentary about his life called The Power Broker. Whitney understood power. He understood politics. And most of all, he understood people. They said Martin was in the streets, Roy and Thurgood were in the church, and Whitney was in the boardroom. One could not have been successful without the other. And that quote comes from Vernon Jordan, and at the time he was CEO of the National Urban League. So Whitney Young Jr. was one of the most important leaders of the American Civil Rights Movement and an advisor to three presidents, Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon. He was a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Johnson, and he even had his own postage stamp in 1981. He came to Atlanta to be Dean of Atlanta University School of Social Work before going on to New York to become president of the National Urban League. But the reason our society is named after him and why he's so important to us is because he and his wife Anita integrated our congregation. And also, Whitney served on this board. And so, with that legacy, we just found it to be such an inspiring story. And our hope is that the Whitney Young Junior Society will be a way of carrying on the legacy that he established here by integrating our congregation. Come on in. Oh, okay. It's my daughter. And how can I even forget? Another reason we really love Whitney Young is because he was actually a Unitarian Universalist.
Woo! Yeah.
You know how we play people? We're like, they could have been. They were practically a Unitarian. He actually is a real Unitarian Universalist hero. So of that, we're very proud. So, for tonight's show, we hope that you can begin to imagine yourselves in a 1930s juke joint during the Harlem Renaissance. Tonight, our goal is to pay tribute to two of the most influential writers from that time, Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes. I'll share just a couple of things about each writer to get us started. And these two writers actually, apart from being friends who were both from the time of the Harlem Harlem Renaissance and universe, they have another interesting connection that I will share. But Zora Neale Hurston was ridiculed in her life and yet became even more famous after her death. She forged conventions of what it meant to be a woman and a black writer. She was free-spirited both professionally and personally. And she was committed to recording African American culture using the vernacular that was spoken at the time. She was proud of her people, proud of the stories of her people, proud of the culture. And sometimes she was ridiculed for that, even by other black writers of the time who felt like maybe she should change the language to make it more proper English. Even though So she was one of the most published writers of her time. After she died broke. She died with most of her works out of print. And really, it was the efforts of Alice Walker to restore a light on Zora Neale Hurston's legacy that brought her work back to us, so that by the time I was an English major at Emory, I was reading her novels as a part of assigned courses. But without Alice Walker really taking it upon herself to write about Zora Neale Hurston, to even purchase a headstone for her grave, and to really put her name out there again, we probably would not be talking about her even today. Now, the other interesting connection, though, with Alice Walker and Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes is that Alice Walker's very first short story, when she was still a college student and trying to become established as a writer, the person who gave her her very first opportunity to be published was Langston Hughes. So it's fascinating to just see these relationships across time and this legacy of African American culture that we're honoring tonight. Langston Hughes, by the time he published Alice Walker's story, he didn't even really know who she was. He just read the story. It was passed on to him by one of her professors, and he thought she had talent and showed promise. And we know that he was right. But Langston Hughes is someone who's written in almost every genre: novels, history, plays. A lot of what we will celebrate tonight, though, is his poetry. He was known as a poet of the people. And so I hope that you will be inspired by us paying tribute to these writers tonight.